Hey everybody, and welcome to this video. This is at last the third installment of what I believe are the best three albums from 5 consecutive years. Well, they're my top three. Obviously everyone has their own choices, it's all subjective. And this time I'm going to do 1965 to 1969. I initially thought this would be the easiest of the lot since we have not as many artists to pull from, but I struggled. I really struggled, especially with 1966 and 1967, in which I was going to give a first equal, but then I thought that's a bit of a cop-out. And so the way I did it for each of those 2 years was to take what I think is the best song off each of their albums and see which one I prefer, and whichever one I prefer, that album won. So anyway, to start off with 1965, and the third best album I think is the Beatles' Help. I actually prefer this to Rubber Soul, so it will not be in the top two. I think this is a great album. This has such classics on it, like, well, you all know, like Yesterday, The Toe Tapping, I've Just Seen a Face. The very underrated The Night Before, and obviously John Lennon's You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. I just think this is slightly more consistent than Rubber Soul, although I do love Rubber Soul as well. And especially prefer the two George Harrison tracks off this than off Rubber Soul. So yeah, it's a fantastic album. You know, any other year would probably win, but for me, for 1965, it comes in third. Okay. Second best album from 1965 for me, it was only, I believe, released in the UK. I don't think it got an American release, even though it is an American artist. And that is the Paul Simon Songbook. This was recorded after Wednesday morning 3 AM, whenever I think Art Garfunkel went back to architecture school, and Paul Simon came over to the UK to tour like the club scene. And this album is just Paul Simon on his own with an acoustic guitar. Now, a lot of these songs were used later on for Simon and Garfunkel, because whenever, I believe, they added a backing band to Sound of Silence, a track from Wednesday Morning, over in America, it became a big hit, so he was called back to record a new album. And a lot of these songs featured on the Sounds of Silence album, like for example, I Am a Rock, Leaves That Are Green, April Come She Will, Sound of Silence Again, A Most Peculiar Man. They all featured, and Kathy's song, they all featured on the Sounds of Silence. Now, I like both versions of the songs, but it's interesting to hear Paul Simon sing April Come She Will. And not only that, for the follow-up album Parsley Sage, he took Patterns, Flowers Never Bend with a Rainfall, and the simple, desultory Philippic, if that's how you pronounce it, as well as using The Side of a Hill as part of the Scarborough Fair medley. So everything off this was released by Simon and Garfunkel with the exception of one song, which is A Church Is Burning, which featured on a live album that came out in the noughties, which is very good, but I don't think it ever got a studio release. But this is excellent music. I love this album to bits, and it seems to be forgotten about. I know it is now included in there as a CD box set, but as I say, I think this was only a UK release, and whenever I saw this, I bought this in 1989, and whenever I saw it in the second-hand record shop, I jumped for joy. It was only a $5 or $2. There you go. So that's been number two. My best album, 1965, it has to be Highway 61 Revisited. Lyrically, Bob Dylan was just miles ahead of everybody else, including the Beatles. This features the fantastic, one of the best songs of the 60s, Like a Rolling Stone. The magnificent Desolation Boulevard, Tombstone Blues with, I think the lyrics that are hilarious. Things like, I wish I could give Brother Bill his great thrill, I'd set him in chains at the top of the hill. and send out for some pillars, and Cecil B. DeMille, he could die happily ever after. Yeah, fantastic stuff. Ballad of a Thin Man from a Buick 6. And just like Tom Thumb, this is brilliant. This is, and you know, this was a second electric album, but the sound of it is amazing, absolutely amazing. So yeah, I would give that the #1 album of '65, light years ahead of anything else. Going on to '66, and this was a tough one. Third place, the Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. And I can understand people not liking this, because it took me an eternity to like it. I'd almost given up on it, and it was actually the VC that got me back into this album. Of course I love the 3 singles from it. Wouldn't it be nice? God Only Knows and Slip John B. But I also liked You Still Believe in Me and I'm Waiting for the Day, but that was it. And then I remember seeing, I think it might have been Mean Mr. Mayo, and he was totally against it. And I kind of felt sorry for the album, so I gave it the week's residency in the car. Oh, it blew my mind. It finally hit. It finally did hit. And things like Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulder is absolutely wonderful. I Know There's an Answer is great. I Just Wasn't Made for These Times, fantastic. And I even love the 2 instrumentals as well. This is again, any other year this would probably win it. But I'm afraid it's 1966, the year I was born too. So there we go, that was #3. Now #2, okay, this one I struggled with, and what I did was I picked my favourite song of each and thought, which one do I like the best? So #2 has to go, and this would be #1 in any other book. #2 is Revolver. By the way, the best song I picked off this is Here, There and Everywhere. This is a 99.99999% perfect album. The only thing I could think that could make this better is if they had dropped the I Want to Tell You by George and added in John's Rain. I think they might have got the #1 place on its own, but this is a fantastic listen from start to finish. It really is. That's only me being picky. Taxman, fantastic. Probably George's 3rd best Beatles song. I do love Yellow Submarine. I think it fits perfectly in here, as does Love You Too. Good Day Sunshine often gets slated a little bit, but I think it's so upbeat and summery. I love it. And Got to Get You Into My Life. It's just this album to me that shows that Paul McCartney was slightly advancing ahead. Okay, John Lennon's songs were fantastic on this, but Paul's were so varied, and musically he'd expanded musically. John's were maybe a little sort of horizontal, whereas Paul's was sort of more vertical. He was going up, but in saying that, the 2 of them mixed together makes for a perfect album, and they sit brilliantly. So Revolver is my #2 album of '66. Which means, no surprise then, the #1 album for '66 is this double piece of genius. This is Blonde on Blonde. I Want You, Rainy Day Women. I can never remember the number, so I'm not going to even attempt to try. Stuck Inside of Mobile with Memphis Blues Again, Visions of Joanna. But what did it for me with this one, again, was the favourite song, and that's Sad Eyed Lady of the Lowlands, which I just think it's about 13 minutes long, and I wouldn't mind if it was double that, 26. I could just listen to that song all day. Absolutely wonderful album. Not everything is brilliant on this. Like, I'm not too keen on Leopard Skin Pillbox Hat, but you know, it is a double album, and there's not very many double albums that don't have the odd clunker on it. But to me, this still wins. This wins outright. Most likely, You Go Your Way, I'll Go Mine. Another brilliant song. Yeah, Bob Dylan. And to consider that between 1965 and 1966, Dylan produced, I think within the space of a year and a half, 3 absolutely blinding albums. It's hard to believe. Again, he was miles ahead. So, going on to 1967, my number 3 choice is the Kinks' Something Else. Love this debate. David Watts was a hit for the Jam. Includes Waterloo Sunset and the Dave Davis solo single Death of a Clown. But, well, this is 67 and everyone was going all trippy, lovey and all the rest of it. Ray Davis was singing about a housewife in suburbia making tea and so forth. It's just hilarious. Such a great lyricist, and although this album doesn't catch you at first, some of the songs do require a bit of listening to, like Two Sisters and No Return. They do reward in the end. I love this. This is, yeah, without doubt, third best of 67. Right. Second best of 67, and this was another one which I think I'm going to change my mind again. I am going to change my mind again. Second best is The Velvet Underground. I've showed this album before. Yeah, so inspirational. They say about 200 people bought this, or 100 people bought this, but whoever bought it started a band. All Tomorrow's Parties, I'm Waiting for the Man, There She Goes, Venus and Furs. Yeah, you hadn't heard anything like this before. It's absolutely fantastic, and I do like Nico's voice on it as well. I think she adds something to it. So yeah, Velvet Underground, as I say, I talked about it before. I've just changed my mind. This was number 1. I couldn't really decide which was the best song against which was the best song, but I think, yeah, this is number 2. Which leaves number 1, no surprise, Sgt. Pepper. My favourite song off this actually is Fixing a Hole, followed by A Day in the Life. I just say there's something about Fixing a Hole, I just think it was wonderful. Again, there's not everything that I love off this. I'm not keen on George's Within You Without You. Only a Northern song I think would have sat better on it, but again, it's I'm only being picky. But yeah, fantastic album. It's the production in this that makes it. George Martin's production is brilliant. I think that's why I've picked that over the Velvet Underground one, because this is leaps and bounds in production. Another song I'm not too keen on, I do like it, but I'm not too keen on it, is Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I always thought it was slightly overrated, and I know I'm going to get killed for this, but I do prefer Elton John's single version, but there you go. Yeah, when I'm 64, I always thought it was fun. Good Morning, Good Morning. I really like that. I know that John Lennon himself thought it was pretty rubbish. Getting Better All the Time. Yeah, love it. Great. So that's my number 1 from 67. Going on to 68, and the third best album, Van Morrison's Astral Weeks, and I have shown this before. This is Van Morrison, acoustic guitar. There's an upright bass that sounds out of tune and very predominant, but it sounds so good, it sounds so different. My favourite song off this is a song called Ballerina, but I love Madame George, I love them all. Sweet Thing would be the catchiest, and it got on the Greatest Hits album. But yeah, Van Morrison's Astral Weeks didn't chart at all, did nothing. But it's not, it is his debut, but it's not. He had one before called Blowing Your Mind, but I don't think he had anything much to do with it. It was a record company thing. But yeah, I urge people to listen to this. It may take a few listens, but this one does reward. Okay, so the second best album, 1968, and here we have the Beatles again. The White Album, not a lot to say about it. Should it have been a single album? Certainly not. Is there filler on it? Certainly yes there is. But does the filler work? Yes it does. Anything I don't like off it? The only song I don't like is the very last one, Tonight. Or Good Night, sorry. I just don't like it. Yeah, sorry, that's it. Everything else, yes, I like, and it's a very, very enjoyable listen, and again, deservedly gets the number 2 spot, but not the number 1. Best album of '68 for me is the Kinks or the Village Green Preservation Society, which until about 3 or 4 months ago had never charted in the UK, had never charted in America, but it had gone gold in the UK. So this has sold consistently throughout the years to actually go gold. It's a masterpiece. I urge anybody into 60s music, late 60s music that likes melody and wittiness to grab this album. My favourite song actually on this is either Animal Farm or Sitting by the Riverside. It's just Ray Davies as Lazy Best. It's a wonderful piece of music. Starstruck is the one that possibly could have been released as a single. There's no singles off this, but every track off this is a complete winner. As you can see, this was bought in Smith's record shop for the princely sum of £4.50. So that was bought in the early 80s. This is an early 80s pressing on Pi. Brilliant album. One of the best of the 1960s altogether. And yeah, love it. So we go on to 1969, and third best album I think is the Bee Gees' Odessa. This is another double album. This is the Bee Gees' crowning moment, but this is what split the Bee Gees up because the single off this was First of May, a Barry Gibb song, great song, but Robin took the huff. He wanted Lamplight with his vocals on, they didn't want it, so he walked out. Fantastic album. This has been shown a few times and given away a few times in the VC of late. Yeah, this is felt cover as well, it's on Polydor. But the title track, Odessa, is great. The Sound of Love's great song. You Won't See My Face Again. Yeah, I love this album. I love the early Bee Gees, and I actually do love the disco-y Bee Gees as well. But third of '69. Second of '69, and he has to get in here. I love this. This is in my top 10 David Bowie albums, as you'll have seen. This is his second studio album, just entitled David Bowie. It was renamed Space Holiday. Obviously the title track, Unwashed and Somewhat Slightly Dazed, I think would have been a huge hit if it had been in an edited form and released. Signet Committee is one of his best songs ever. It is quite folky, it is quite acoustic-y, but it is a brilliant album. It's up there. It seems to get forgotten about a little bit, but yeah, this album didn't chart at all. It did nothing. But yeah, that's my second favourite of '69. Which leaves the number one of '69, and I don't think there's any surprise, and I will say this is the best album ever of the '60s. This is, yeah, we all know it, we all love it, Abbey Road. And this is where George Harrison really comes in with two of his strongest songs ever, with Here Comes the Sun and Something. The medley on side 2 is just a work of genius, especially when you consider, you know, a lot of the songs, especially the John ones, were little outtakes from the White Album sessions, but the way they were knitted together was just a work of genius. And I love the whole of side 1 as well. There's nothing on here that I dislike, nothing. The only thing I'm not too keen on is the way I Want You, She's So Heavy stops, but sure, I can live with that, so I can. So yeah, this is my favourite Beatles album. This is the best album of the '60s, and it's one of the best albums of all time. So, Abbey Road. So that's my top 3 albums from 1965 to '69, and as I say, it was much harder than I thought. And as you can see, I changed my mind at the very, very last moment as well. Well, my prerogative, I can do that. So the next one, I don't know when it will be. I'll have a think, but it'll probably be, I think I'll probably do 85 to 89, and then there will be 70 to 74, and that'll be it. Okay, so thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that, hit the like button and subscribe if you would like to. Okay, all the best. Bye bye.